in exactly the same way that the Holy Prophet ﷺ knew that what God is telling me is the truth. He never stopped preaching. And in the same way, we won't stop preaching.
It's against the teaching of Islam to force anyone into belief, which is la ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in matters of faith.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, and welcome to the second semi-final of Face2Face live here on MTA International. When we started this program, the idea behind it was that we see on social media that many Khuddam, many individuals within the Jamaat are expressing their views or answering allegations. So we thought, why not channel all of these arguments and speak about the different allegations and different questions that are raised when it comes to Islamic customs, when it comes to some traditions and some rituals within the Islamic faith. So that was the idea behind it, and we spoke and we heard so many Khuddam from across the globe who expressed their views when it came to different scenarios that we gave them. In today's program, we're also going to go to another scenario, something which is quite hotly debated and quite frequently talked about, especially here in the Western world, but also across the globe, because there is some sort of a link between that topic and Islam. What that exactly is, we're going to hear from our contestants. 5 Khuddam are with us on the line again today, and we're going to be speaking about, or the scenario that we gave them, that one of your friends who's non-religious is curious about marriage in Islam. And the question that the person asks is that, how come that your parents choose your life partner for you and not you yourself? So that was the scenario that we gave them. Before we start, just a few reminders and a few things that we would like to give you on the way for the next couple of minutes. The opinions expressed in this program by the Khuddam are entirely their own. They do not necessarily reflect and represent the official viewpoint of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Secondly, you, the viewers at home, you have been following our program, and you know that at the end of the program, you will have the chance as well to vote for 2 of the individuals who you think should be going to the finals next week and join our 2 finalists that we chose last week, Dr. Umar Nasser and Tasleem Ahmed from New Zealand. Another additional feature that we included starting from last week was the 60-second segment, meaning that after we have heard and listened to the video of the contestants, one of the judges will have the chance to ask them a question which they will answer within 60 seconds, and that will also be marked or will be part of the final mark that they will give to that contestant. As far as the prize is concerned, the winner of the face-to-face competition will have the chance to host a show here on MTA International. Coming to the respected panel of judges with us over the past few weeks, we had Mohammed Zahid Saab. Actually, to my very far right, we have Amr Safi Sahib, who is the editor of the Review of Religions magazine. And to his right, we have Mohammed Zahid Sahib, who is currently a teacher in Jamia Ahmadiyya UK, and Quddus Arif Sahib, who is a member of the National Amla Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya here in the UK. Jazakumullah sanazat to all of you, and welcome to Face2Face. Now, after this, we're going to go to our first contestant for today. 5 Khuddam are with us on the line. We're going to hopefully speak to 4 of them on Skype and ask them a few questions. So with us, our first Khadim is Sarfaraz Bajwa Sahib here from the UK. Sarfaraz Sahib, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Face2Face. Sarfaraz, when you were told about this specific scenario that, a non-religious person asked you, why is it that your parents choose your partner for you? What did you think about that? You were like, yes, that's a good thing, or that's going to be a difficult one?
No, I was hoping for the other topic, but...
But you did manage, hopefully, quite well.
Yeah, I learned a few things as well in the process as well.
How long did it take you to actually prepare for this one specifically?
I think we had 3 days this time, so I spent about 2 days reading up some
some answers, possible answers, and then 1 day sort of preparing my own answer.
You qualified in that episode about, when you had to prove that there can be a prophet after the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. Was that easier, or what do you think was that the scenario today? Was that easier?
I think the first scenario was much easier because there were more things to say about that, and this is a bit more specific.
All right.
I feel anyway.
All right, so let's see how you did in this one. We're going to go to the video that Sarfraz Baja Sahib has sent us. This is Sarfraz Baja from the UK.
One thing about marriage in Islam is that it's more than the coming together of two people. Whole families are brought together. And as it was your parents who raised you when you were a child, it's important to include them in this decision. As the Holy Quran says, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, show kindness to your parents. And your parents know you better than anybody else, so they can give you the best advice. But your parents being a part of the decision doesn't mean that it's not your choice, because at the end of the day, it is your choice. It's true that in certain cultures, people are married forcefully, especially women. But the Holy Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, said that no virgin shall be married until her consent is given. And you might think that Muslim couples, they're not even allowed to meet one another until after marriage. But once again, this is a cultural stereotype, and it's not imposed by Islam. For instance, once the Holy Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, he recommended a marriage for one of his companions, and he told him to go and meet her. So he went to her house, but her father rejected his request to meet her. The girl who was standing behind the door and listening, she herself came forwards and said that if the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, has said that we can meet, then we can meet. And Hazrat Umar, the second Caliph of Islam, when he found a pious wife for his son, he told him to go and meet her, and he told them to come to a decision if they want to be married or not. So no marriage can be arranged without the consent of both the man and the woman. But the woman is required to have a wali or a guardian to represent her. And this is to make sure that her rights are protected and her interests are protected, and to maintain her modesty. Islam doesn't allow the guardian, however, to force his decision upon anybody. In an Islamic marriage, man and woman should protect one another's honor and make each other feel secure with support and understanding. And just as clothing is worn for protection, God says, "Hunna libasul lakum wa antum libasul lahun," that they, your wives, are a garment for you and you are a garment for them. But if you still think that this is backwards and the normal way of doing things is better, that men and women should pick their mates and then go out on dates and then come together and live as boyfriend and girlfriend, too scared to commit to one another, often taking years to decide if they are compatible for one another, then surely marriage after such careful consideration should be much more successful, right? The funny thing is that this is not the case. In the United States, 50% of marriages end in a divorce. In Islamic countries, the rate is much lower than this. So I guess the real question we should be asking here is that, are you ready to make such a big decision all by yourself?
All right, that was Sarfraz Baja Sahib here from the UK. One thing that I would like to tell the viewers as well, when you go to the online voting at the end, when we open up the lines, there's 3 categories that the judges are judging the contestants upon, and these are argumentation, conviction, and delivery. So keep these in mind as well forever for the contestants that you are voting for. We're going to start with Mohammed Sab. You have the 60-second question for Sarfraz Sahib. And Sarfraz Sahib, a reminder to you as well, stick to the time if possible.
Yeah.
Mohammed Sahib, please.
Sarfraz Sahib, I'll make a brief comment first. I like the way you have actually responded to the question. You spoke with authority, and you have, mashallah, given some very good arguments. And I'll give you some extra marks for the beautiful, colorful mosaic behind you as well. I have my question to you, for which you'll have 60 seconds to answer, is that you mentioned the hadith of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, in which he allowed one of his companions to meet the woman he wanted to marry. And my question is, are there any limits set by Islam in this regard, or a man or a woman are freely allowed to meet?
First and foremost, there are limits, as in every society and every walk of life, there's always limits. And even in the Western society, there are limits. It's just that Islam has drawn a line at one place, and the Western society is much more, you can say, liberal and takes the line a lot further. And to be honest, it's almost as if there are no limits. In Islam, of course, physical contact is not permissible before marriage. And in Islam, dating and talking to one another a lot, these sorts of things are forbidden. But when it comes to finding out if you're compatible, Islam has given permission to see one another, because in the famous saying of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, that people marry for looks, for honor, for rank, and for piety and for wealth. But he told the Muslims to marry for piety, because ultimately this is what's going to...
That was the 60 seconds for Safra Sahib. He was in his final thought, I guess.
He spoke well in these 60 seconds as well, but I think one thing which he failed to mention was that obviously Islam allows to see each other and to meet each other, but this should be done with like proper precaution, as Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi Rahimahullah and Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khamis Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Asir Aziz both has actually clarified this, that you are allowed to meet, but in the presence of a chaperone.
Exactly.
In the presence of some elder person who is basically a guardian or a parent or a brother or anybody.
Right. Very important to actually clarify. Amr Saab, your thoughts? I think from the last time, remember him in the first program, much more comfortable, a lot more passionate maybe.
Safra Saab is a very strong candidate. I thought he did very well, and I agree with Momin Saab's comment, that his background is completely different from, it's a very simple background here, whereas the other background is very extravagant. So we might give him extra marks for that. I think Safra Saab covered the topics really well. The one thing possibly I could add is something Khalifatul Masih Rabi has said, which is that generally we see in our Islamic or Indian Ahmadiyya community, we are told to be much closer to our parents anyway. So say, for example, a Muslim girl, she already has an extremely close relationship with her mother and father. She's already sharing with her parents a lot of information and seeking advice from them out of her own will. And for her to not ask her parents at the time of marriage would actually be extremely difficult for her. So this is something that could possibly be added.
We're going to have to move on to our second contestant. Muhammad Izhar Raja Sahib from Pakistan is with us on the line as well. And Izhar Raja Sahib, he was with us in our episode when we spoke about a tifl asking you why we're not allowed to eat pork. And I do remember, Raja Sahib, you mentioning that example with a video game, which I think all of the judges liked here as well. So Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Face2Face to you as well. This topic in specific, is that something that is talked about in Pakistan? Is it something that the view on how to look at this, is that changing with the new generation? What's your observation on this? I believe, Rahsab, did you understand the question? So I was asking, this topic in specific, is that something that is talked about in Pakistan? Is that questioned nowadays by the younger generation, or is that pretty much an understood topic?
Not really, but it's like you have to deal it in one way or another here in this our society. But if you say that directly we are dealing with such a question, even talking with the young generation, no, I don't think so.
Okay, well, Jazakallah for that. Muhammad Izhar Raja Sahib, we're going to go to your video. Raja Sahib is from Pakistan, and this is the video that he sent us.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. If you are curious about the Islamic way of marriage, and by saying that your parents choose a partner for you, you mean that whatever parents suggest, we are bound to follow it blindly and we don't have any voice or opinion regarding it? then I'm really sorry to say that you are misinformed and it is totally a wrong notion. As far as Islamic way of marriage is concerned, then when parents make a suggestion, then consent from both boy and particularly in the case of girl, it is taken and it is mandatory. Both are autonomous to make their decision. There is no compulsion in it. And if the boy or the girl wants to meet, talk or to see each other before the marriage, even that is permissible in Islam. But with the condition that such a meeting should take place in front of the parents and under the supervision of elder people. You are right that marriages among Muslims are usually arranged and parents, they choose the partners. Why is it so? Because parents, they are the most deserving people for it. What makes them so deserving? Their lifelong sacrifice and the services that they have been rendering not only from the time of birth of the child but even before that, when mother carries the child in her body for at least 9 months. It is a total natural approach. I don't know what is not clear in it, because when you are said to make a list of the guests you want to invite on your convocation or graduation party, see who is at the top of the list. Parents. Total natural approach. Then parents are also the most suitable people to carry out this job. Why? Because number one, they are experienced. They have seen a lot of marriages in their life. They themselves are in the marital status for years. Number two, that they know their child very much, so much so that even the child himself is not aware of himself to that much extent. And number three, that their decisions are not based on passions, as is in the case when a person who in the very age of adulthood goes on to find his life partner on his own. Then there is another thing, that this tradition of arranged marriages is going on for centuries, and this long experience shows us that marriages are not only long lasting but secure as well. For the practical proof, if you want to see, then the divorce ratio graph of the countries where there is no tradition like this is much more higher in number as compared to the other countries. So when there are greater advantages following this pattern, then I think a wise person should go to adopt it. Jazakumullah.
That was Muhammad Azhar Raja Sahib from Pakistan. Qudus Sahib, I would like to ask you to ask Raja Sahib that 60-second question.
Jazakallah Raja Sahib for your entry. If I can make a comment before. I think when we generalize our comments, for instance, he was mentioning about decision being based on mere passions. If you're not making these decisions or you're doing anything apart from a marriage which is important, you're taking consultation of it from your parents, and you mentioned that decisions are based on passions. Maybe that's a very generic statement and we should avoid making generic statements like that. But my question to you is that you said that consent is mandatory. If you can highlight for me that, how have you come to this conclusion within Islam that consent is mandatory?
Sorry, can you repeat your question, sir?
I'm saying that you've mentioned that consent is mandatory. From what sources have you gathered this information from, that consent is mandatory?
We get the guidance about this from the traditions of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. At this time, I'm remembering two of that incidents, that once a person who was interested in getting married, and he went to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and His Holiness told him about a home, and he went there and he asked the father of the girl that Holy Prophet ﷺ has sent me over here, and there is a match for me, according to him. Then he actually rejected that. But the girl wanted to obey the saying of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. So she was interested in obeying that. That matter was sent to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and he said that when the girl, she is ready, there should be no pause on it. Second, there is another tradition about it, that at another place, a girl went to the Holy Prophet ﷺ and asked that my father married me with a person who is really elderly in age. So what should I do? Then Holy Prophet ﷺ asked that
Yeah, Jazakallah. I think your second hadith that you were quoting probably was more suitable to the answer for consent, because the first hadith was related more to, meeting people and seeing the person in real. But the second hadith was probably more, relevant to the question I asked.
Amasab, 60 seconds for you.
So I think he did quite well. The candidates are all very strong in this final. I would say one thing that will be useful, if this is being asked by a non-Muslim, this concept of asking the parents' permission is not completely alien in the Western society. It's also a tradition amongst Western countries for even for them to go to the father and ask permission for their daughter's hand in marriage. Although this tradition has died down, a recent survey in the United States of America, which is widely reported this year in 2017, found that 63% of millennials asked the parents' permission's hand in marriage before they actually married their daughter. The only difference being they were perhaps already in a relationship for a long time. The only difference in our system is we say, instead of waiting for a long time afterwards, we take the parents' advice, as it's been made clear. The first decision always lies with the boy and the girl, and it's their decision. But the parents' advice is brought in at the early stage, which seems to be a more common sense and logical way to go about it.
All right. Jazakumullah. Just a reminder for you at home, the voting lines online will be open after we have listened to our last contestant for today's program. Go to www.mta.tv/face2face. And if you're on Twitter and watching on Twitter, we'd love to hear from you as well. You can tweet to us at face2face_MTA. Our next khadim for today's program is Hafiz Belusab from Nigeria. He's not with us on Skype, but I believe he's with us on the telephone. Assalamu alaikum, Hafiz, and welcome to Face to Face.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Hafiz, I believe it was the Jalsa Salana Nigeria that came to a conclusion today. Is that correct?
Yes, alhamdulillah, it went well.
So tell us a little bit about the Jalsa. What duty did you do over the past 3 days? Are you tired? How is it looking?
Well, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, as expected as members of Majlis Khuddam, we're engaged in several activities. The Jalsa itself started Friday with lots of activities, prayers, lectures delivered by our Maulvis and Hamir Saab, Ahmadiyya Nigeria. We have invited guests from different segments of the society, including Christians, and they are happy to identify with what Jamaat Nigeria is doing. In fact, of note, yesterday one of the invited guests was telling us what happened as far back as 1975, how he knew about Ahmadiyya and the effort of what Ahmadiyya Nigeria is doing. One of the guests, remarked that Ahmadiyya has been at the forefront of all the Islamic community in Nigeria. Ahmadiyya has been leading in poverty eradication programs, in health improvement programs, through hospitals and all that. And he was very particular about the fact that Ahmadiyya has been that only community, Muslim community, that has helped to fight ignorance in Nigeria. This is very striking.
I'm pretty sure we're going to read and hear about it in different reports that are going to be published in Jamaat literature. Well, Jazakallah for that. Hafiz Bello Sahab, we're going to go to the video response that you sent us for today's scenario. This is Hafiz Bello from Nigeria.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rather than choose partners for their child, what Islam recommends parents should do is to be involved in the selection process. And the reasons are quite significant. I will look at it from the Islamic perspective and the social perspective. In Islamic perspective, marriage is seen as beyond just the man and the woman. The family is the basic unit of the society. So it is important to ensure that the family is involved and other segments of the society to ensure that 3 reasons for such marriages. Number 1, to ensure increased peace, affection, love between the partners and the spouses. Number 2, procreation, and to provide the right environment for the kids. And the third one is to promote sanity in the society or moral uprightness. Marriage is so important in Islam that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ noted that it's half of faith. So it means that for you to complete your deen, you need to get married. For such a very important institution, then it means that it should not be taken lightly. And it's not something we can limit to just the affection and the love that usually comes with, the man and the woman at the beginning. However, when marriages get into its own full-fledged dynamics, you see so many issues come up. That takes me to the second perspective, which is the social perspective. Parents know their kids better. They give birth to these kids. They've gone through different signs. I'm sure you also know that. So they understand their kids better. They understand the weak points and the high points. And this is very significant in advising their kids to select a partner for a life partner. A second social factor is the fact that parents have huge experience in marriage. Marriage issues before you give birth, after birth, so many things happening, dynamics in marriages. They are better positioned to advise their kids towards selection. However, the consent of the kid, of the child himself or herself, is very important in the marriage process. The third one is the global statistics. You and I know that in recent times, marriages in environments where parents are involved in the selection processes have lower rates of divorces, and unlike what happens in areas where parents are not involved. There's an article I read just a few days ago, by a non-Muslim. I mean, she was appealing technically to parents that they should get involved because the rate of divorces, killing in extreme cases, it's quite growing, and it's something we don't want to continue in our society. So parents should be involved in selection of the spouses.
Amr Sab, we're going to jump right into it. You have 60 seconds, that segment with Hafiz Bello Sab. Your question, please.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum, Hafiz Bello Sahib.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum, Hafiz Sab. First, well, I would say you're much improved, I believe, from last time in terms of it's very clear, and it's a very good delivery, so well done with that. My question to you is, some people say that if you compare love marriages where there's no involvement with parents and arranged marriages, then there are also divorces in arranged marriages. So why does that happen? Should it not be completely perfect? Why are there divorces also in arranged marriage? You have 60 seconds. Please go ahead.
The arranged marriages bring about understanding on all parts. Yes, there are issues with respect, because there is no perfect system. The man and the woman, there are ups and downs. In arranged marriages, even with the best of intentions, you still have problems. The intention of marriage is not that there would not be challenges. The intention of parents' involvement is that when those challenges come up, there are family supports, there are societal supports that can let these couples scale through these life challenges. They are part of our problem, they are part of the society, and before now, since the creation of man, there has been the need for man to relate with his fellow citizens, either man or woman. So issues come up, but then arranged marriages or involvement of parents along the way has helped in terms of stability or moral partners in society. Compared to the other side, where parents are not involved, as I mentioned, the global statistics are quite staggering, and even by the United Nations on some of these related issues, we have the facts relating to this.
Time is unfortunately up, Amr Sab. Are you
Yeah,
satisfied?
Very well. I would just add to that, I think you mentioned that the divorce rates are higher amongst non-arranged marriages, but also an important point that Hazrat Khalitum Sirabi has made is that the divorces that do occur in arranged marriages more often than not are not because of the fact that they're arranged marriages. There are other factors to do with socio-economic conditions, to do with other issues within the family, but it's not because of the fact that it's an arranged marriage. The arranged marriage actually produces a building block and a system where the parental advice, not just decision, but parental advice, allows for potentially a more fruitful marriage.
All right. Well, Jazakumullah for that. Hafiz Bello Sab, if you can get marks for his outfit, please. If I can request you that. Hafiz Sab, Jazakallah, thank you very much for joining us today. We're going to move on to our next Khadim. Kashif Mahmood Tahir Sab is from Pakistan. He's with us on the line as well. He was with us when it came to the scenario of how Khilafat is different from other worldly forms of total government. Kashif Sab, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Face2Face.
Thank you.
Kashtab, did you change anything as far as your approach is concerned from from the last program or from the last video that you sent us after the judges gave you some pointers?
Now, as far as my approach goes, as I said in the first submission, I approach it to the extent I look at the issue or the topic myself instead of indulging myself into what maybe would be the normative approach on it. So, no.
Jazakallah for that. We're going to go to your video because last time you scored as well. That's why you're here in the semi-finals. This is Kashif Mahmood Tahir Sahib from Pakistan.
The Islamic way of marriage is simply beautiful and perfect, actually. It's flexible, comprehensive, and well emphasized. Firstly, coming to the flexible part, where it's important to deal with the remark you made, in Islam, parents are not given autonomy over choosing spouses for their children. It actually teaches us that فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ, that marry the woman you like. And this liberty is not limited to men, it's equally awarded to women as well, as was demonstrated in an instance when a woman came to the Holy Prophet and complained that her father had married her to a man of his choosing and she could not accept his choice. So the Holy Prophet responded that in that case, that marriage was invalid and she could go marry whomever she wants. So this is the amount of liberty Islam has allowed men and women while choosing their spouses. Secondly, Islam has laid down a great deal of guidance for choosing a spouse. It teaches us that there are 4 major criteria for choosing a spouse: their power, their beauty, their wealth, or their piety. And after recognizing all of these aspects and not prohibiting any or imposing any, it goes on to advise that it would be best for you that the criterion you attach most importance to is the piety and goodness of that person. It also teaches us that you should quietly gather information about a potential spouse before initiating any sort of proceedings. It teaches us that you should find a spouse that is compatible to you, to who you are and where you come from, because that will obviously increase the likelihood of that marriage to be successful. So there is a great deal of guidance in Islam, and all of these teachings retain that element of flexibility because none of them are binding injunctions and they're merely guidelines. Lastly, a great deal of importance is attached to the institution of marriage in Islam, so much so that it has been made a religious obligation, and for good reason as well. In Islam, the reasons for the importance of marriage are the continuity of the human race, to avert people from distasteful desires, and to promote love between spouses and their families, and through them in society at large. So all of these are logical reasons for why marriage is important, and how you should find a spouse, and why this is necessary for the functioning of a peaceful and harmonious society. So what is the Islamic way of marriage, you ask? Well, as I said in the beginning, it's perfect.
That was Kashif Mahmood Tahir Sahib from Pakistan. Moment Sahib, you have the opportunity to ask him that 60-second segment question. Kashif Mahmood Tahir Sahib, a reminder to you as well, please stick to the time. You could be deducted a few marks if you go over time. Please, Moment Sahib.
Jazakallah Kashif Sahib, mashallah, you spoke very well and you have actually given some very good arguments, and particularly I like the way you has actually extracted from the Holy Quran the verse and the inference that you have taken from that. That was very relevant, very pertinent, and I like that. Now my question to you is that in the Quran a lot of issues of marriage are directed to men. Why not women?
Because there is a general tone in the Quran for using words which relate to a man. And those words do not necessarily mean that in particular they are only towards men. As I mentioned the hadith, that even in the mentioned ayat, there was that marry the woman you like. That shows, apparently, that it's only towards men. And so much so in different scriptures as well, even in statutes, there's a he or him or his used. Apart from that, there's a general superiority to say awarded to men in marriage, as it says that ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisaa, and the reasons for that are separate, but these are the reasons why they're mostly directed to men.
Well, he took it quite serious with the 60 seconds. Momin Sahib, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he did well, reasonably well.
All right. Well, that was Kashif Mahmood Tahir Sahib. Khuddamul Sahib, your remarks.
MashaAllah, I think he did a good job. Kashif Sahib, so well done. I wasn't too 100% sure with the last part of the answer, his 60 seconds. One reason that may Allah uses male is that in Arabic, when you speak about men, the commandments which are given, or the verbs that are used for men, that can be used for women as well.
Exactly.
So fankihu, they include the whole of the general public. So that was pretty much the answer. So I think that was a bit steered away.
I think maybe the word superior would rather, because actually men and women are equal in marriage, but there's different roles. Those different roles have different responsibilities. So, for example, man has to be the guardian, the man has to provide, to the extent that, in fact, in some ways, a woman has more rights. So, for example, if a husband is earning, say, £500 and a wife is earning £500,000, the husband still has to provide for everything, and he has no right over even one penny of the woman, who has complete liberty to do. So because the man is the breadwinner and he has to provide, he has been given some more responsibilities. Otherwise, in terms of husband and wife, they have absolutely equal rights in Islam.
There's a few tweets that we received last week, and we didn't have, unfortunately, the time to read them out. The Islamic Light has tweeted, binge watching Face2Face MTA. MashaAllah, definitely a show I would recommend to all Ahmadis to get a better sense of how to answer commonly asked questions and to do tabligh. Hamad Muin Ahmed has tweeted, Alhamdulillah, amazing show. We're all watching intently from the Czech Republic, #medical students. There was another one actually from the Czech Republic. I will have to look for it, but Jazakallah for all of your tweets. If you are watching from different countries, we'd love to hear from you. You can tweet to us at face2face_MTA. We have one more contestant with us on the line, and after that you will have the chance to vote for two of the contestants you think did the best job. As I mentioned before, the judges are judging them on three different categories: argumentation, conviction, and delivery. So please keep that in mind as well if you are voting or if you're casting your vote for one of the Khuddam brothers that have been on the show today. As I said before, www.mta.tv/face2face, that's the address. Go online, and after we have gone through our last contestant for today's semi-final, the lines will be open and you can go to that website and cast your vote for two of your contestants you think did the best job. We're going to go to our last khadim for today's program. Akbar Ali Sahib from Canada is with us on the line. Assalamu alaikum, Akbar Sahib. How are you today?
Welcome, Salam. Alhamdulillah. Very well.
Why do you think it's important to clarify this topic or to speak about this?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, marriage is something that everyone has to go through. It's a very, very big decision that's required for us to survive. So it's an aspect that needs to be addressed because there's many misconceptions people often have, and especially as Ahmadi and Muslim youth living in the West, where we often do get asked these types of questions. It's very important to have a good understanding of what Islamic concept is.
All right. Well, Jazakumullah, Akbar Sahib. We're going to go to your video, and then we'll be back with you on the line as well. This is Akbar Ali Sahib from Canada.
Now, this concept that parents are the ones who choose their children's life partner is actually a very big misunderstanding. But before we discuss what the role of parents really is, it's important to first establish, the Islamic philosophy and purpose behind marriage. Now, marriage is something that has implications far beyond just the interest of the husband and wife. because these two individuals, they become the parents of a new generation. Islam says to think of each married couple as the individual building blocks upon which society is founded. Now imagine that for whatever reason, these bricks that uphold the greater structure themselves are weak. They've either been made or mixed poorly, or they simply haven't been built for the purpose they are serving. Imagine how weak and vulnerable to falling apart that structure would be. Now, so too should we make sure that every marriage or building block of society is founded on the right precepts and guidelines, and should be formed with the greater outcome of society in mind. Now, bearing in mind this greater vision, it's very important to ensure the long-term strength of each marriage. And this is where Islam provides a solution by saying that seek qualities in your spouse that are long-lasting rather than, being misled by carnal attraction, which can potentially distort our vision. It says to use a more dignified and structured approach to finding your life partner. And this brings our conversation back to the role our parents play, because they fulfill both of these criteria. There's a saying that you cannot look at your own forehead. You need a mirror for that. And parents in many ways are that mirror, because their experiences exercise valuable insight and they understand you better than you can ever imagine. And aside from this, even if we think about it, people look for partners through a third party all the time. Dating sites, for example, match you with a suitable person based on algorithms. But why would you not want to use an advocate or mediator that loves you and is genuinely concerned with your best interest? The Quran, it encourages Muslims to seek consultation in all affairs. And in this situation, we are applying the best consultation we can get for the greatest of affairs. And so the idea of autonomy and freedom to choose, that isn't necessarily taken from you, it is simply facilitated for you to make a better decision. Islam's concept of marriage is actually very beautiful, because unlike the modern approach that we see today, it teaches us to take a more holistic approach beyond just short-term attractions, and instead seek things like piety. When we see countries like the United States with divorce rates of nearly 50%, we would naturally wonder that, what happened to this ever-cherished and embellished concept of love? And the simple answer is that love is not something that someone just goes out and casually finds one day. It is the fruits of respect, dignity, and effort between the husband and wife, and the common understanding that the marriage serves a greater purpose.
Jazakumullah. That was Akbar Ali Sahib from Canada, and boy, I gotta say, I do not want to sit on your side of this table. So, Akbar Ali Sahib, your question that Quddus Sahib will ask you, you have 60 seconds for that as well, and the time will start after Quddus Sahib has finished his question.
First of all, Akbar Sahib, can I just say it was a very good response. I loved many bits of the answers, but one in particular was about using the dating sites and talking about that it's just an algorithm. We also use a third party to, get a match for us. Why not go through this tried and tested method for centuries? So well done on that. My question to you is that if a khadim was to ask you, and you're speaking about the hadith that you should be looking for piety in your partner. So if a khadim was to ask you that, I may not be physically attracted to this girl that's been suggested, but she's pious. But is it my preference for me to choose her rather than any other girl, or should I choose someone who's more attracted? How would you respond to that?
That's such a very interesting question, because at the end of the day, the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he listed, according to that hadith, he listed 4 criteria. Piety obviously was at the front, at the top of it. But Islam is a religion that very much understands human nature as well. It considers, the various other inclinations and whatnot that we have. So it's very important to also consider that, at the end of the day, you do need to be physically attracted as well. And to say that you're going to surrender that entirely and go for piety, it's not saying that, that would be harmful for you. But because Islam is a religion that, caters our, natural inclinations in the right direction rather than shutting them off and cutting them off entirely. In that regard, piety should be prioritized, but you should also consider if you'll be attracted or not as well, because that at the end of the day will play a huge role in the long term, play of the marriage.
Jazakallah, well done, good response. I'll be satisfied with that.
All right. Moments up.
MashaAllah, Akbar Ali Sahib spoke very well, and the examples which he had actually given, they were very vivid, everyday examples, particularly like the example of the mirror. And then the analogy that he has given between the algorithms of dating websites and the advice which is given by a passionate and by an affectionate, I'd rather say, parent, that obviously is given more importance. So his response was obviously very good.
Right.
He's a very strong contender.
Amr, you have more than 60 seconds this time.
So I think two quick things. One, if you look in the Nikah sermon, the sermon which announces the marriage, taqwa or righteousness or piety is mentioned 4 times. So what does that mean? It basically only means that you're looking for someone who's truthful, who's loyal, who will be good. And who wouldn't want those things? Now, if those things are there and the person, you look at other things like beauty, etc., then there's no harm. But naturally, any person in their right mind would want to marry somebody who has those good qualities in them, because that's more likely to keep the marriage intact. So that's one main thing that I wanted to say.
Okay. Well, Jazakumullah for that to the judges. And now it's their time to cast their vote and give their remarks and marks. And also the time for you at home. Go to www.mta.tv/face2face. You will see a list with all of the 5 contestants that you saw today on today's program with their videos, answering today's scenario with their replies. And also they will be joining us in the next, or 2 of them actually will be joining us in next week's final program with Umar Nasser Sahib from the UK and Tasneem Ahmed Sahib from New Zealand. So the contestants for today you saw were Sarfraz Baja Sahib here from the UK, followed by Muhammad Izhar Raja Sahib from Pakistan. After that we listened to Hafiz Bello Sahib from Nigeria, and then Kashif Mahmood Tahir Sahib from Pakistan. And just right now you saw the video that Akbar Ali Sahib from Canada sent us. So these are the 5 Khuddam that took part in today's program, and 2 of them will be joining us in next week's final episode of this season of Face to Face. As I said, go online, www.mta.tv/face2face. Now, before we go to our a small VT that we have prepared a small video clip of episode 3, 4 and 5 of the quarterfinals, and having a look at that journey to the semis. Sabahat Ali Sahib has tweeted to the entire Face2Face team, I want to very sincerely and wholeheartedly congratulate you for this incredible initiative where our Khuddam talent can be showcased and channeled. Week after week, we've been glued to the screen to yet another compelling program. Sabahat Ali Sahib, Jazakumullah for your tweet. And so we're going to go to that video, the journey to the semis, please.
But it's not just Islam. In the Bible, in the book of Genesis, it said how Rebecca covered herself with a veil when she met Isaac. And of course, Mary, mother of Jesus Christ himself, is always shown as being modestly dressed.
Now, Purdah in Islam, it states that men should lower their gaze and guard their modesty.
His Holiness Hazrat Mazrur Ahmad, may Allah be his helper, mentioned in his that women were encouraged to use purdah to actually promote their participation in productive engagement.
The teachings of Purdah are for both men and women. It is not a means to suppress or subjugate a particular gender. Rather, it guarantees freedom and security to every individual.
And at the end of the day, when we believe in a religion, we believe that everything it teaches is true, as it comes from a divine source. And if Purdah is a commandment of the Holy Quran, then Sami'na wa ata'na, we hear and we obey.
A Khalifa, he does not wish to become in a position of authority. They do not endeavor to become Khulafa.
A Khalifa is supposed to abide by the divine law. He is answerable for all his actions, not to a man or a woman, but to God himself.
And that's why Hazrat Mirza Tawhid Ahmad said that the Khalifa is appointed by God as his representative to the community, and the community is represented to him.
Now Hazur, beloved Hazur, does his Friday sermons. Is he, telling us to benefit him in some way? No, he's saying to us we need to develop our relationship with God, and we need to fulfill the rights of each other.
So when you do accept Islam, and when you do recognize the authority of your Khalifa, you do so willfully, and not because you're forced into doing it. You do so because you want to, while having every right to not want to.
See, the Holy Quran and its text as it is right now, it was exactly the same as it was revealed to the Holy Prophet ﷺ.
Firstly, one must look at the methodology of revelation, how the book came into being. And secondly, one must look at the contents and the messages contained within the Quran.
Now finally, my question is that who told Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in Quran almost 1500 years ago to negate both crucifixion and Jesus as Son of God, which are the very basis of Christianity?
I told him that Jesus was crucified and he did not die on the cross. He was taken down alive, and his supposed grave was actually the place where he recovered and came back to the living.
All right, so that was the journey to the semis. The final results are out. The two Khuddam that will be joining us in next week's program, the final show of Face2Face, are Kashif Mahmood Tahir Sahib from Pakistan and Akbar Ali Sahib from Canada. Congratulations to both of them, Akbar Ali Sahib and Kashif Mahmood Tahir Sahib. We're going to speak to Kashif Mahmood. Both of them actually are still with us on the line. Kashif Sahib, Assalamu alaikum, and your thoughts. How are you feeling? Did you think that you're going to make it this far? Of course you did.
Yeah, yeah, I was optimistic, but I was indifferent about it because everyone was equally good.
Are you going to change your approach this time or not?
Maybe. It will depend on the scenario.
All right.
Depend on the question we're given.
So you're going to be joining Taslim Ahmed Sahib and Dr. Umar Nasser from the UK and Taslim Sahib from New Zealand. Have you been watching their replies in the previous programs?
Yeah, I remember Dr. Umar, and he's really good. Yeah, that's all I can say.
All right, so there's nothing to be scared of. Fastabikul khairat, that's the motto and that's the idea behind it. Kashif Sahib, Jazakumullah to you. We're going to go to Akbar Ali Sahib. Akbar Ali Sahib, Assalamu alaikum, you still with us?
Walaikum salam, yeah.
That confidence, tell me where that comes from.
I'm not really sure. I enjoy speaking. I've always took part in ijtimas and whatnot, but I guess that's a bit of practice.
All right. I might have asked you that question in the beginning. Whose idea was it that you actually take part in this competition?
I actually saw a message going around on WhatsApp, and I thought, it'd be interesting to take part. I actually had exams going on at that time, so I wasn't sure if I will. But another friend was also doing it, so I said, why not? I'll submit a video, and I believe I sent it like a minute before the deadline or something like that. But I just submitted it from there, just went forward.
It was a good thing that you did send it, even though it was a minute before. Well, congratulations to you as well, and we're going to see you, inshallah, next week as well. Jazakallah and Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
All right, so Jazakallah to you as well, watching at home and casting your votes. There's a few more tweets that we have been getting. Jazakallah for those. For example, Kanza Siddiqui has sent us a video of her TV. And awesome show, well done to the whole team. Jazakumullah ahsan to you as well. Next week, we're going to be with you with the final program, the final show, and the final of Face2Face. The scenario that we are giving to our contestants next week is that a person you're walking down the road and somebody sees you and says, how or when are you going to bring Sharia law to this country? Something that we have been seeing in the news and we've been hearing in the news, especially here in the West, quite a lot. People are scared about Sharia law. What is it exactly, and how to approach this kind of allegation or this kind of question that somebody asks you? That is something that our contestants, the final contestants, are going to tell us in next week's program. Jazakumullah for joining us today. Jazakumullah to the panel of judges here as well. Amr Safid Sahib, Mohammed Zahid Sahib, and Quddus Arif Sahib. Jazakallah to you, and we will see you, inshallah, for probably the hardest episode so far next week, Sunday at 7 p.m. Jazakumullah to you at home as well. From all of us here, take care of yourself. Have a lovely evening. And until next week, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In exactly the same way that the Holy Prophet ﷺ knew that what God is telling me is the truth. He never stopped preaching. And in the same way, we won't stop preaching.
It's against the teaching of Islam to force anyone into belief, which is la ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in matters of faith.
We have been on a 7-week journey with 25 Khuddam from all across the globe. 4 Khuddam have now been selected to go to the finals, where we'd like you to join us on the 31st of December 2017 at 7 p.m. live here on MTA International, where these 4 Khuddam will be given the following scenario. You're walking down a street in London when a person suddenly approaches you and mockingly asks, "When are you bringing the Sharia law to our country?" What would you say to them? You, the viewers at home, will also have the chance to vote for your contestant by going online to www.mta.tv/face2face. So join us live for the final on December the 31st at 7 p.m. live here on MTA International.
Join us after the break as we present Gulshan-e-Waqf-e-Noor Lajna, an educational class for female members of the Waqf-e-Noor scheme.
Waqf-e-Noor are now spread across the globe. Many are studying in their respective fields, while others have fulfilled their pledge of dedicating their lives for the Jamaat. There are many who are practicing doctors, television producers, architects, graphic designers, missionaries, engineers, accountants, and much more. Ismail is an international magazine launched by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih V, specifically for Waqf-e-Noor around the world. Waqf-e-Noor can contribute by sending articles regarding their respective fields of studies. The magazine is published on a quarterly basis as a platform for the Waqf-e-Noor to get in touch and say what they've always wanted to. To subscribe to this magazine, you can contact your National Waqf-e-Noor Secretary. You can also read the magazines online at www.alislam.org/Ismail. Remember, this magazine is for the Waqf-e-Noor by the Waqf-e-Noor. Everyone is welcome to send their articles, contributions and comments. Ismail Magazine, the central magazine for Waqf-e-Noor around the globe.
حدثنا عبد الرحمن بن سامورة قال: قال لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: يا عبد الرحمن، لا تسأل الإمارة، فإنك إن أعطيتها عن مسألة أكلت إليها، وإن أعطيتها عن غير مسألة أعنت عليها.
Hazrat Abdul Rahman, may Allah be pleased with him, narrates that the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said to me,